Just days ago, David, one of the fastest rising names in alt-pop music, a guy with nearly 4 million TikTok followers and a world tour selling out arenas, was standing in a Los Angeles courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, entering a not guilty plea to charges so devastating that they have stopped the entire music industry cold. No fans screaming his name, no tour bus, no record label, because that's already gone. And now, prosecutors have unsealed an autopsy report that answers questions people have been dreading and revealed on his phone that has made this case even more serious than it already was. Evidence that investigators say paints a picture that goes far beyond a single crime. Here's the thing that most people are still not processing. This case just escalated dramatically, and we're going to break down every single new development for you today, because the details that came out this week are not small. They're the kind of details that change how you understand everything that came before them. Let's set the scene because the last 48 hours in this case have moved fast. David Anthony Burke, the man the world knows as D4vd, was arrested on April 16th, 2026 by LAPD officers who had been building this case for months. The investigation began after human remains were discovered in September 2025 inside 2 bags in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to him at a tow yard in Los Angeles. Those remains were identified as 14-year-old Celeste River Hernandez, who had last been seen alive on April 23, 2025. Formal charges were announced on April 20th, 2026 by Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. First-degree murder with special circumstances, ongoing criminal conduct involving a minor, unlawful treatment of human remains. The DA alleged that Burke had been in an inappropriate and illegal relationship with Celeste beginning when she was just 13 years old, and that when she threatened to expose him and destroy his career, he killed her to silence her permanently. 3 special circumstance allegations were attached: lying in wait, financial gain, and murdering a witness. This is a potential death penalty case. The DA's office has stated that the question of whether to formally pursue that route will be decided later in the proceedings. But just the fact that it is on the table tells you where prosecutors believe the weight of this evidence sits. At his arraignment, David appeared in an orange jumpsuit and did not speak a single word. His attorneys entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. The judge set bail at 0. He is not going home, but here is where the story moved even further this week. Prosecutors announced they found a significant volume of deeply disturbing and unlawful content on David's iPhone and iCloud account. Content involving minors. That evidence sitting on his own personal devices and synced to his cloud storage is now part of what investigators describe as over 40 terabytes of digital and forensic evidence compiled in this case. 40 terabytes. That is not a small file folder. That is a years-long digital trail that authorities say they have been methodically working through. And what they found on those devices has added an entirely new dimension to the charges already filed. And then the autopsy report dropped. And what it contains is not just a cause of death. It is a timeline that forces you to rethink everything that happened in public while something entirely different was happening in private. The medical examiner's findings have been sealed since investigators first made their determination. This week, that seal was lifted, and what was inside is now part of the public record. The autopsy for 14-year-old Celeste River Hernandez confirms she died as a result of violent injuries. The condition of her remains, when discovered in September 2025, reflected months of time having passed since she was last seen alive in April of that year. The forensic findings were significant, and the medical examiner's conclusions now form a central part of the prosecution's physical case. That timeline is something that is very difficult to sit with. It means that while David was on tour performing, while he was active on social media, while fans were streaming his music and calling him the next big thing in alt-pop, Celeste had already been gone for months. The car that held her remains had been sitting at a tow yard, and the world had no idea. Think about what that means for the investigation, too. Law enforcement was working with a timeline that stretched across nearly 5 months between when she disappeared and when she was found. 5 months during which the condition of the remains significantly complicated the forensic picture. The fact that investigators were still able to build a case this extensive with this much digital and physical evidence says something about the scale of the resources that went into this work. There are no comfortable words to describe what that autopsy report represents for her family. The River Hernandez family, through their attorney Patrick Steinfeld, has remained largely silent publicly since the arraignment. That silence speaks its own kind of volume for the prosecution. The autopsy is a critical pillar. Physical evidence of cause of death, combined with the digital evidence pulled from his devices and the forensic work done at the scene, forms what D.A. Hochman has described as a comprehensive and extensive evidentiary record. But the defense is not quiet either. And what they said in court this week tells you exactly where this legal battle is headed and how long and complicated the road ahead actually is. Blair Burke, the attorney leading David's defense, has been clear and consistent from the beginning. They will vigorously defend David's innocence, and they argue that when the actual evidence is fully presented in court, not in press conferences, not in headlines, but in a courtroom with proper legal scrutiny, it will show he did not kill Celeste River Hernandez and was not the cause of her death. That distinction matters. The defense is drawing a line between what prosecutors are saying publicly and what they believe the legal evidence will actually support under cross-examination and formal challenge. That is a significant position to hold when the DA is describing 40 terabytes of evidence, and it is a position they're going to have to defend starting very soon. Here is the important detail from this week's proceedings. The defense stated publicly that they have received almost no discovery from the prosecution, meaning the evidentiary picture prosecutors have been laying out in press conferences has barely been formally shared with the defense in a legal context yet. That argument led to a delay request, which the court acknowledged. A judge has now set a hearing for May 1st, 2026, where prosecutors are expected to formally begin presenting evidence. That date is the next major moment in a case that is still only in its earliest stages. It will be the first real window into how the prosecution intends to structure their argument, and the first moment where the defense gets a clearer look at what they are actually up against. Meanwhile, the institutions around David have continued to cut ties. Interscope Records dropped him. Twitch banned him from their platform. The music career that prosecutors say he allegedly killed to protect is now the very lens through which the entire world is watching him walk into a courtroom. And through all of this, David is sitting in one place, a segregation cell. And here is what that actually does to a person who spent years living in front of crowds of thousands. The psychological shift is something most coverage has not even touched. The Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail is one of the largest jail facilities in the entire country, with over 5,600 beds housing people across every security level imaginable. It is not a quiet or gentle environment, and David is not in the general population. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office confirmed he was placed in segregation due to his high-profile status, classified as a noteworthy inmate, and separated from the rest of the population entirely. The official reason is safety. High-profile inmates, particularly those charged with crimes against children, face very real risks inside the general prison population. The segregation is a protection measure, not a punishment. But for the person inside the cell, that distinction is largely academic. Segregation means a specific kind of daily existence. Most of the day spent alone in a small cell. Meals delivered to you. No yard time, no social structure, no casual human interaction. Phone access restricted and monitored. Every call logged. Every movement observed. The walls do not change. The routine does not change. Former corrections professionals have noted that even for individuals with no prior mental health concerns, this kind of isolation tends to produce significant psychological stress within weeks. The mechanism is not dramatic. It is quiet. The absence of stimulation, the absence of feedback from other people, the absence of any sense of forward movement in daily life. For someone whose entire identity was built around performance, around crowds, around the constant noise of a rising career, that absence hits differently than it would for most people. For a 21-year-old who spent the last several years performing for crowds of thousands, traveling the world, constantly surrounded by people and sound and momentum, this is a total and complete reversal of everything that defined his daily life. One week you are on a stage. The next, it is the same four walls every single day, waiting for a legal process that moves on its own timeline, not yours. And the pressure does not pause while he waits. Every new piece of evidence disclosed, every sealed document unsealed, every headline lands while he sits in that cell with no way to respond to any of it publicly. Right now, as of today, David Anthony Burke, 21 years old, is sitting in a Los Angeles County jail cell waiting for May 1st, waiting for prosecutors to formally begin laying out evidence they describe as spanning over 40 terabytes. Waiting for the defense to receive discovery they say they have barely been given. Waiting to find out what the rest of his life looks like on the other side of a legal process that has only just begun. An autopsy has now told the world how Celeste Rivas Hernandez died. Devices belonging to the man charged with her death have been found to contain material that prosecutors say reveals a deeply troubling pattern of conduct that long preceded the night she disappeared. The institutions that once backed him have walked away, and the next major courtroom date is set. His attorneys say the evidence will prove his innocence. The prosecution says it will prove the opposite. And somewhere beneath all of that legal positioning is a 14-year-old girl whose family was desperately searching for her, who deserved to be alive, and whose story is now being told in courtrooms and sealed documents and an autopsy report that nobody wanted to read. Sometimes the thing a person builds their entire life around becomes the reason the walls close in. And sometimes the truth, whatever it turns out to be, arrives too late to change what is already gone. For now, this is where the story stands.